Well, I think I was reading over the form that you filled out
Yeah.
when you submitted this coaching call form. You kind of want to go over compensation, but you also wanted to like spitfire some questions based on our coaching call that we had. What would you prefer that we start with?
I think I'll just start kind of firing questions at you. Like I said, obviously this is a time when trying to get everything ready for next year. So obviously, like when you're here laying the groundwork for, next year and getting everything ready. And so just some things that I want clarification on to, more or less prepare for next year and start to get some of this stuff ironed out. But yeah, that was the main thing. Like how much to pay myself for next year, um, or I guess how to pay a regional manager, and then how to pay myself for next year is obviously next year I'll be wearing command center office manager hat, and then being the regional manager to Brighton as well. So, and I want to make sure that like we obviously need as much cash as possible to grow over the next couple of years. I think that's going to be our biggest like hurdle is just having the cash to grow. So I want to make sure that like I'm not sucking into this drag. I don't really need money, but at the same time, whenever like compensating Brighton based off distributable cash, the more money that is left in the bank account, the higher percentage that he gets, and the more that looks like the business is making money when it in theory wouldn't be if it was paying a true salary, if that makes sense.
Sense. Yeah, I think it's a fine line that we want to toe here because you want to, like you said, keep enough cash in the bank account to facilitate that growth. But I do see your concern of if Brighton is going to base his standard of living off of distributions and off of that distributable cash, it's not fair to him or to your books for you to then all of a sudden one day be like, guess what? I'm gonna now pay myself this amount of money. So did you come up with an idea of what you're going to be paying Brighton as the GM?
Yes. Yep. It'll end up being it's it's like $55,000 base plus monthly revenue bonuses and then 25% distributable cash. So if he grows the capacity next year, like we're planning on, it'll come out to like with the monthly bonuses plus his salary, it'll be like a $72,000 salary um, for the full year, not including any bonuses or not including any distributable cash. I mean,
Okay. I'm gonna send you, I don't know if this is gonna show up on the screen or not, but I just sent you what I pay myself a year in salary at a $1 million a year location. So if that gives you any context of where you need to be, the idea here is if I had to replace myself, what would be a reasonable salary for this position? But you're going to be in a position, Adam, where you're not necessarily like a true regional manager. You're not necessarily a true office manager. You're wearing like four different hats. And so to throw like a standardized salary at that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because that's not a role that's going to be filled, right? So what I would say is um, I would just communicate with Brighton and kind of talk with him about it, because one day he's going to be in that regional manager spot as the business continues to grow. And so I think that's a conversation for both you and him to have. It says, what do you think is a fair salary for a regional manager? What do you think is a fair like compensation plan in terms of do they get a percentage of revenue on each location they manage? What kind of distributable cash percentage do they get? Um, that's a conversation for you guys to have. I think if I remember correctly and what you told me you pay yourself, I think you're higher than what I would imagine it to be, at that location. But I also know like how you guys are doing financially, and so it's not an issue. Where us, we have two partners, and so what I pay myself, I also pay Dylan, and so that if I didn't have two partners, there could be an extra um, income there. But I don't even let that get to me at all because Dylan just pays for himself in terms of effort and what he does for our company tenfold. Um, so ultimately, I was talking with one of the regional manager. No, he's actually an owner within Augusta, and he has five locations, and he has a regional manager that manages four locations. And from the conversation I had with him, to me, it sounds like regional manager is a really tricky position because they're kind of just like They're set in place to ensure that the CEO gets to have a cush life. That's all it is. It's, hey, handle any fires before they get to me. If you call me, it better be for a real reason. Like that's just what a regional manager is. And so from a CEO standpoint, you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to pay for that to happen? What am I willing to pay for somebody to handle my problems? And that's all a regional manager is. Or you would just
Yep. Yep. I gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of what I was thinking. I was kind of, obviously you sent yours kind of in between what I'm paying myself now and there because obviously I don't want to make sure that they said draining the cash in the account because I think that's going to be our biggest issue as far as growing over the next couple of years. But cool. Awesome. Um I know we set up the you set up the automation in the Zap for the interview and application process to automatically schedule that. Is there ever a time when interviews when you like turn off interviews? Because obviously with that, it's the automation to where if they qualify for all the all the questions that we have on there, it'll send the link to automatically schedule their interview. Do you ever turn that off, or are you accepting interviews pretty much year round?
we do it year round. Because we'll turn off ads to enter to for hiring ads. We'll turn off hiring ads, but we're not going to turn off the automation. I want to be able like because hiring is a function of sales. So I want to be able to fill my pipeline consistently all the time because if I get into a position where two of my Rockstar employees leave, get hurt, can't work, whatever, um, I have a pipeline full of people that I've talked with in the past and that I've left. I've It's not that you like burned a bridge with them if you say, hey, not right now. We went with somebody else, but you don't have to redo a whole in-person interview again. You can kind of do a quick like feeler phone call with them, say, hey, do you want to come in maybe for like a week and see if it works? But leave them on. You can toggle the ads on and off, but the automation just leave it on.
Okay, cool. And when you're doing those interviews, like, should should we approach those as far as like, hey, up front with them, like, be like, we don't really have a spot for you right now, but we may be looking in the future, or if something happens, or just like treat it as a normal interview. If they're a rock star and we need them on the team, then cut the bottom and hire them no matter what.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It kind of like you kind of have to bet on yourself to a certain extent, and I'll break down what I mean by that. Just knowing your situation, I know that you have assets that can be maxed out more. You have to ask yourself, do I have enough work for this employee right now? And if the answer is no, then you have to ask yourself, what time of year is it in? Is it like go-go time for sales? And I just currently don't have enough work because I haven't been putting a lot of effort into sales. And then if you are spending like 50% or more of your time in the field, just hire a person to get you out of the field. Now you can focus on sales to get another employee. But if it's like, well, shoot, I was gonna say if it's like January, maybe not, but all of our best hires have happened in January, February. And so
Yeah.
I always just think if my assets are not maxed out, am I willing to bet on myself in sales to fill their schedule? And my answer to that is yes.
Yeah. Cool. Um, I know we talked about it a little bit while you're here, but walk me through what the kind of process for like emails is for each location, and especially when we have multiple locations and we start talking command center and like where leads from different locations come in to one mailbox or separate mailboxes that an office manager is logging into both of those. And then let's see, like I said, I know we talked a little bit about the Gmail accounts for every location. That's for basically your general manager and everything that is specific to the location. But walk me through what that looks like once we get to multiple occasions. I want to make sure I'm setting everything up like now for Brighton to make sure he's good to go for this coming year so that we don't have any problems in the future.
Yeah. Um, Brighton as a GM doesn't need a Brighton at pristinegreen.com. You just give Akron GM at gmail.com. That's the email account he needs. The only time you're going to really want to have like a domain email, because you have to pay for those, is like for you as the owner. I like to have one. And then I like to have the rest as anything that's customer facing. So for us, our main email for like our Hutto location happens to be info@troopsmowing.com. I created that email prior to realizing I was going to open up multiple locations. If I could do it all over again, I would have hutto@troopsmowing.com, and we currently have Georgetown@troopsmowing.com. And that way, those email accounts are tied to each individual CRM's location. And so when you're sending out emails, it's sending as Georgetown@troopsmowing.com or Hutto@troopsmowing.com, depending on which CRM you're using. So now every single new lead that comes in, they're not even going to know info@troopsmowing.com exists for the Georgetown location because everything's happening through Georgetown. The
Yeah.
tricky part is we had about 3 years of our business with one location. All of the customers are familiar with info@troopsmowing.com. And so some of the Georgetown customers are still emailing the info@troopsmowing.com. But that's going to get filtered. And the more you raise prices, the more you lose people, so on and so forth. That's going to figure itself out as time goes on. But
Sure.
in terms of making sure that the correct email addresses, so it's like, let's say Akron at Pristine Green and then Hartville at Pristine Green, those would be your two locations. You're going to have one free estimate form on your website. So no matter whether they're in Alaska or Hartville, they're going to fill out that same estimator form. On the back end within Zapier, you're going to create an automation that use paths. So one path is going to be if the zip code is contains the zip codes that are within your Akron location, then create the customer within the Akron CRM. If the zip code contains the Hartville zip codes, create the customer in the Hartville CRM. If neither, add them. I think I already did this for you. Add them to the out of service Google Sheets and then automatically send them an email. That way you're keeping it super simple where even if you have 45 locations, as long as Zapier can support 45 different paths, it just comes down to how are you going to filter on zip code. And that's why zip code at multiple locations is one of the most important pieces of information you can get on the estimate form.
Yep. Okay. Cool. That makes sense. Right now, our website domain is extremely long, pristinegreenlawnandlandscape.com, all spelled out. I was talking to the people at Lawn Care Web Design to because I wanted to get that changed to shorten that either to pristinegreenoh.com, pristinegreen.com, something shorter that was available. And they said since the SEO has already been building on the long domain that we shouldn't change it just because we're already ranking well in our service area. So, do you have any suggestions there? Because that's like the one thing I hate right now is because our email, like you said, is contact@pristinegreenlawnandlandscape.com, which is just terribly long. And so I've thought about doing like a creating another domain, doing like I said, like a pristinegreenoh.com, and then just having anybody who goes to that site will just be automatically sent over to our existing long domain. But then that way we could set up um, our email addresses as Hartville at pristinegreen.oh.com and whatever that looks like rather than trying to stick with the existing super long email address. I know that's just probably like not super important, but it like I said, one of the things I've been trying to work through to make sure that we set it up now so that it can scale.
Yeah, I think you need to ask the website company, say, what kind of time frame are we looking at to get back on track with ranking and if they're like, it might take 2 months. Well, now's the perfect time to do it because you have 2 months where you're not going to be in spring rush. Um, if you go the route that you're thinking of, that's extra hosting, extra domain price per year, an added expense, which I don't think and it's an added expense, and then it's also just another headache. It's like now I have to one extra thing that other companies don't even have to deal with. I have to deal with now. Make sure my domain's purchased every year, hosting is good, etc. Um, if it's not going to be too big of a deal, where it's not going to hurt you too bad in the long run with SEO, I would like to just do it simple, to have one domain name. Um,
Yeah.
have that conversation with them. And I agree with you. That was one thing on like our coaching visit was that was one thing that was in my mind, but I threw a million and one things at you. And I was like, this one's a
Yeah.
bot barrel type of task. But
Yeah.
like a shorter URL because if like you're doing door hangers and you want to put your URL on there,
Yeah.
precision landscape ain't gonna fit anywhere on a door hanger. Um, so just I agree with you.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, and I sent an email to him, and like Tori, the guy at Lawn Care Web Design, he called me, and he's just talking me out of trying to create another domain, which is like one way I get it because I don't want to ruin the SEO. It's just like, oh, it's just a pain. I just wanted to get it, taken care of. But yeah, okay, cool. I'll figure that out. See what that looks like, what the process would be to get a shorter domain, or maybe in the meantime just do those forward links. But
We had context for that too. So it's like this is a short term issue. So if this is gonna be something, I mean you're 20. We went out for Mexican food. We couldn't even get you a margarita, you know. If
yeah,
you're gonna be doing till 60, do you want to deal with the long URL for 40 more years?
yeah,
You want to just bite the bullet and start ranking on a new domain name now?
right. Yep, cool. Um, how how are you having general managers communicate with the office and kind of relay information back and forth? I've seen some stuff out there about like doing co-pilot to-dos and kind of routing those into your general manager's, account. But what does that look like to, especially at a macro view, trying to it's easy for all the guys that I've been working with just to try to, with me being the office manager next year, to just shoot me a text, shoot me a call, whatever. But obviously, I want to try to wean away from that as soon as possible because that's not going to be the long term, model to scale.
We have Slack. Everything is ran through Slack. So we have channels, like for example, we'll have property damage Hutto, property damage Georgetown. We have Hutto admin, Georgetown admin. We have Hutto GM, Georgetown GM, and then we have automations ran to each channel. So it's like if in Copilot we schedule a drive-by estimate, automatically sends a message in Slack to the general manager in the Georgetown GM Slack channel saying drive-by estimate scheduled for today. That way, they're not always constantly having to check their Copilot schedule. They're instantly notified if something happens. One thing that before you build out Slack, check this thing out. I just found out about this. It's called Connect Team and it's free for up to 10 users. And you do anything like you can house all of your SOPs in there. You can have a chat like with Slack with custom channels. It ties into with Zapier. This is probably something we're going to move over to before we get into spring rush of next year. And then you can like create courses or quizzes. So it's like if you're going to onboard somebody, they can go through your onboarding course and read about your core values and take a quiz at the end to make sure they understand. Hey, if you want to request time off, do it this way. I'm getting long-winded. Doesn't really answer your question at all, but we don't like to use text messages because we want to build our company around the position, not people. And so if everybody is used to sending messages to you, but you need to go on a 2 month vacation or a 2 month honeymoon, which is hopefully coming up here soon, and hopefully, but if you have to go on a 2 month honeymoon, everybody's going to be like, well, I can't send them a text message. Who do I send a text message now? It's like, no, just have a thread in Slack or Connect Team that says office, and then just assign a user to that channel.
Okay, cool. Got it. I will definitely look into Connect Team and Slack. That's what I was planning on for this year, especially just having all the field guys just have all of our communication through Slack or something like that, where rather than trying to do the iPhone, group messages where different employees leaving every week and adding every week and all that fun stuff. So
We had a really solid iPhone or iMessage group chat, and then we hired somebody with an Android, and that made us had to get over to like Slack.
yeah,
I think that's WhatsApp first, but um, it was an important change to be made.
cool. Awesome. Um, as far as and I know we talked a little bit about this because I know, with my Google Sheet empire, I was running some manual entries here, but what's gonna be the best way to like track bonuses for, like crew leader monthly bonuses and anything like that are going into there, and to like log those, make sure they go into payroll correctly, make sure like tracking general manager, like indirect labor or any indirect labor that guys are doing to make sure they're being profitable as much as possible? Is there anything I should be using for that? Because like right now I'm not running my own payroll. That's why it's been a lot of manual entries. I just send an email over to um, our accounting company and they run all the payroll through them. So I just want to make sure that all that stuff's being tracked and it's going to be accurately put in there because I know especially like using P4P and trying to add like crew leader bonuses and stuff like that, it can mess up the whole thing pretty quickly when all the data in there.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but for us, like even next year, we might be anywhere between 1.5 to 1.9, and this is still how we'll do it next year. Is you just need to create a task for whatever position is going to be responsible for figuring out bonuses, let's say regional manager, creating a task for that regional manager that needs to be completed on the first of each month or the 31st or the 15th. You decide. And then it's going to say like we have weekly tasks, daily tasks, monthly tasks. And for like the monthly task would be figuring out bonuses. So you have to ask yourself, what bonuses am I offering? Am I doing attendance, crew leader bonus, regional manager bonus? What bonuses am I offering? And then that task on the month is going to be like, who's getting the bonuses? And then you're just going to simply put that in like, you can create a template for your email that's going to automatically go to your accountant. So you can say the template is going to be like, hey, accountant, direct labor breakdown, colon, enter, leave a blank space. And then you can say overhead labor breakdown, colon, enter. And then you can say bonuses, bonus breakdown, colon, enter. And then at the end of each month, just go in and open that template up and send it. So it's like, hey, Brighton gets this amount of bonus. Um, and then the crew leader one gets this amount of bonus. And the direct labor pre-payroll tax was this amount. Um, Brighton, although he's salary, he contributed $2,500 worth of direct labor that's already included in the amount I just sent you. Please deduct that from his overhead salary to be on the books. And then they can be able to run with that. Like he's still going to get salary. He's not going to get any extra money for direct labor, but you want the books to show a true direct labor versus overhead. And so by sending what I found by sending our accountant that information and make sure our books are squared away. Um, Granted, we do the payroll because it takes us 5 minutes every 2 weeks to do it. Um, but to figure out bonuses, just create a monthly task and figure out a way to make sure that it gets done in case it's not assigned to you. So whether you create a task in Copilot and then one of your like we talked about the big three when I was there. Like one of your big three could be for the general managers to be say all the tasks are closed out for the week. It's like like the Friday big three, like all the tasks are closed out for the week. And then what I like to say is like a task isn't truly closed out unless there's like notes on it. Because I can go in and click open and complete, but I want to see if there's notes on it to make sure somebody actually did some stuff. Um, does that help answer your question a little bit?
Yep, absolutely. That's perfect. Cool. Another quick question. If we'll talk about like letting firing customers and letting them go, how much like thought should be put into like if we're going in marketing in that neighborhood with postcards and door hangers and we're sending this information to the customer's house that we just fired. And again, I know this is one of those like small things, but like, should there be any thought put into that at all, as far as like, not wanting to, oh, we can't service your property this year. We're not going to service your property, and then send them an email in March, and then April 1st they got a door hanger on their door that says, we'll cut your lawn for $50. Like, should there be much thought put into that, or handle that, especially when we have like different guys going out and do door hangers, and they're not going to know who to put one on and who to not leave one on, stuff like that.
That's I one thing that Mike has been challenging me on is I get too defensive and I just need to be focusing on offense. And I think that's a defensive measure. So what I would do is if you're going to fire a customer, like if you're actually going to fire a customer because they're horrible to work for, then is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yep.
If you're going to fire a customer, add a tag to their account that says like do not service, like no matter what. Um, and then a quick little thing could be if you're going to send out an estimate, um, I'm trying to think how Copilot's automations work because you could possibly be like um, send out an estimate via text message, and then like it doesn't go through if a customer has this tag. And then you get a notification saying customer didn't get an estimate because of this tag or something like that to make sure that the office isn't sending people these estimates. Or you can just quickly go to like, I'm going to think of an automation for you because I don't want to take up a whole lot of time right now on a call to do it. But I'm going to think of an automation so that way your office, aka you right now, doesn't have to go into each customer profile and see if they have this tag or not before sending an estimate, because then that just adds time, overhead time for no reason. So I'm going to think of an automation for you on that.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Answer more directly is no, just market like crazy. And on the 0.05% chance that somebody calls out and is upset with you because you told them to go kick rocks and they got a door hanger, they might leave a bad review. Oh well, but the amount of work that you got out of it for marketing like crazy is it doesn't matter.
Right. Yep. Okay. Yep, I agree. Um, kind of, and then if we're sending upsells and like cross sells, text messages to all the customer database, and we get somebody who wants to accept something and they're not a current customer who has a card on file with us. What's the workflow look like to get them to put one on file before we can get them scheduled? Is it you I don't know, you may not even require that as far as card on file to be put on the schedule, but is that like just send them the text link with the link to add your credit card right on there, write up an estimate and send it to them and have them accept it and do that, or what does that look like? Because I don't want to create friction in the process, but I also want to create it to be much more standardized where like I said, just all of the office employees know that for any estimates to get scheduled and anything to be put on our schedule, a customer has to have a card on file with us so that they know that going into it.
So to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, Adam, you're saying when you're sending out mass text campaign and you're saying for $100, I'm going to do this, reply with yes if you want to get scheduled. And then people that are replying with yes do not have a card on file. Am I hearing you right? Okay.
Correct.
Well, if that happens, there's two ways you can do it. You can simply say, hey, Mrs. Jones, like in a text message, hey, Mrs. Jones, we got you scheduled for December the 12th. Um, Please note that it is a requirement for all of our customers to have a card on file. Here's the link to do so. Failure to add your card on file will result in us not being able to service your property. We'll see you on the 12th. That's option one. Option two is when somebody replies with yes, say, amazing. Um, Quickly go in and create an estimate with that price and say, love to hear that. Just simply click accept. Once I get that notification that it's been accepted, I'm going to get that scheduled so we can make sure your spot's reserved on our schedule. I think those are the easiest two options to do that.
Yep. Okay, cool. That's kind of what I was thinking. And kind of along that note, whenever, you have a mowing customer and their card declines for a week and you pause their service, how do you make sure that when a card gets added that you actually go and activate their service again and restart that without just having to, check 6 times a day on every individual account?
So there's currently a way to do it within Copilot, but I am not solely reliant on automations just yet. Until they put out like, hey, you can bet your life on our automations, I'm not
Yeah.
going to rely too heavily on that. Um, the automation, what that looks like is if you're doing weekly services, you can say the automation would say after 4 or 5 days of an invoice being past due, um, add this tag to the customer's profile saying temporarily pause services, whatever. And then once that tag is added to a customer profile, the office gets an email saying to pause services. And then you can say, the secondary automation would be like if an invoice is paid and the customer has this tag of the temporarily paused services, send the office an automation saying that this customer can resume services and then remove that tag. So that would be the way to do it with automations. How we are currently having to do it is like once a week, like first thing on Monday, I'll go in and look at all of our past due invoices and I'll see if anybody has an invoice that is going to be on the schedule for this week that's past due. I'll try to call them to get it handled. If I can't get in contact with them, I'll create like a call note saying that I tried calling and they didn't answer. And then in the Copilot, you can have an option to like create a follow-up to do, and I'll put that for a week from then. And then if, because we do bi-weekly, so we have a longer window to do it. Um, if it's still not paid and I still can't get in contact with them, I'm going to pause their services and I'm just going to keep pushing that to do back a day. You know what I mean? Um,
Yep.
super, super manual, very not scalable, but that's basically all we can do without relying on the automation.
Yep. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah, I know I'm trying to create like a list of some of those more technical automations that, I want to down the line whenever Copilot is confident that they're good and they're working, that, we can start to put into place to get all those, tasks automated and not so manual. But awesome. Well, what are we on time? I know it's probably getting close here.
These are like normally scheduled for 30, but I always give a 40 because we'll get probably kicked off around 40 minutes. So if you have
Okay,
7 minutes to keep firing.
cool. Let's do it. Um, like I was kind of mentioned earlier, I think the the biggest. Well, let me give you some context here too. That is a little update from when you were here. But we had our individual meetings last week, kind of wrapping up, our main season here. And had a good talk with Corey about staying here long term, and he's super interested in taking over that kind of second location general manager position. And so me and Brighton talked to him yesterday. I had a couple-hour talk with him, kind of laying out what that would look like. And so obviously that's a ways away with just getting location one filled to capacity next year, but hopefully on the horizons for 2026, where I feel like we have at least for the next 2, 3 years, I think we have some good groundwork laid with good guys that are going to be able to grow and scale it up. So super excited about that. With that being said, I think the biggest problem that we're going to have is just cash to buy equipment and to fill the capacity this year, and then really with having to do that, making sure that we have enough cash to grow the second location as it should be without going into too much debt or more debt than we're already in. So do you have any suggestions there? I know that's obviously you can go take this a million ways, but any anything that jumps out to you that's like a way to like that we can really stack cash this year, besides just obviously the basic things as far as cutting expenses and filling the capacity like we talked about, making sure that that last percentage is profitable, make sure that all of our assets are being utilized and filling the capacity and decreasing expenses. But anything else that kind of jumps out on you that we can really start to stack up cash for the next couple of years?
I think you first need to come up with a goal, and backwards plan that goal. So it's like, how much cash is it going to take? And what is the minimum working capital I need to have in my account, regardless of how much cash I need to spend to grow? And once you have that number, backwards plan to get to it by X date. And so if that means that we need to be net profit 20, uh, and and if we're going to be net profit 20, that means we have to do 80,000 a month in revenue. Okay, well that's my North Star. How do I get to it? I got to make sure that I have X amount of employees, that these many trucks are filled up, etc. So ultimately just figure out the number you need, backwards plan. Um, Other ways would be just to double down on quality and make sure that customers are happy. Um, make it hard for people to cancel and really focus on decreasing your attrition rate to be around like that 30 to 40% range for annualized attrition rate, and have a high hourly rate, decrease attrition, speed, get estimates out fast because if you can play offense and defense and just like completely skunk the other team, if that's a good analogy, who knows? Um, that's the best way to do it because if you get a lot of people in and not a lot of people are wanting to leave and you're still able to raise your prices without impacting attrition too much, that's the way that you're going to be able to stack cash. because then you're gonna have to buy assets, and then your cash obviously is gonna get depleted there. Also, I look at debt in terms of, do I want if I'm gonna get a $20,000 truck, or let's just say $30,000 for a whole mowing setup for a two-person crew. Do I want to finance all of that and save 30,000 that I can put into marketing? Am I confident that my 30,000 in cash is going to outperform the interest on the 30,000 in debt in terms of return on investment? Then I'm just going to do the debt. But if I'm not confident, I'm either going to do a higher down payment. Um, we've yet to buy a single asset in cash outside of like lawnmowers. But all trucks have been financed because we get, I mean, rates are bad now, but if it's less than like 8% of a rate for auto, I'm just going to do it because it's going to be $500 a month for that truck. And then I can just make $25,000 a month in revenue on that one truck. And so for me, if I'm then, let's say worst case scenario, net 10% profit on that truck, that is what, $2,500. So that would be a 5x return on my investment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I, I'm, I 100% agree. And I'm, I'm mostly for using debt. The main thing I'm worried about is just, you know, I go to get a truck and the banks say, hey, you got enough debt, only having this much credit history and being this young and being this and that. So obviously co-signers and all that, but I feel like I'm not too far away from hitting my ceiling here pretty soon with what the banks will give me. So
I think you'll be all right, man. Like, as long as you're paying your bills on time and you're not running like a high debt to income rate, or am I saying that right? Debt to income ratio. Uh,
yeah.
I think you're gonna be all right. Like one thing that we got into an issue with is my wife and I, we were potentially looking at moving, and we talked with a lender and we still got pre-approved, but she was like, "Hey, you have like 6 trucks in your name." Um, what? And I was like, I got a business. Um, and she's like, "Oh, okay." But if you can be a personal, what I've found is if you can be a personal guarantor on the loan, specifically through Ally Financial, it does not get reflected on your personal credit. It only is like business.
Interesting.
So because I found
Cool.
she was like, she's like, you have 5 trucks that are financed, and I'm like, I thought I have 6. And she's like, well, what's the 6th one I'm not seeing? I'm like, it's this one, and she was like, I don't see it. I'm like, all right. And then I'd like contacted the dealer and through Ally Financial. And they're like, oh yeah, it's not going to show up on your personal. So that's if you can be a personal guarantor, try to go through Ally. And I'm sure other people will do it, but I know for certain Ally is not going to show up on your personal credit.
Cool. I will look into that.
And if I
Awesome.
do post this on YouTube, this is not legal financial advice. This is just
Yeah, you can contact them for your financial consulting, huh?
yeah, cool. Well, before we wrap this up, how you want to go over a few minutes on how that trip was up in Ohio when I visited you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was, you know, just huge for myself, huge for the business. Have that happen. I know we talked a little bit about it, but you know, I think just having somebody who's done what I'm trying to do before, obviously succeeding at it, you know, growing to where I want to take my company was huge to get you in there to kind of take a look at everything that we're doing, especially on the back end of stuff where I think we can really we can and we have improved efficiencies and done some automations and made it a much more scalable process. I think it was huge just having you be able to just do a deep dive for 3 whole days, looking at everything that we're doing in the business, what can be improved, what can be cut out, what can do this and what can do that. And I think the biggest thing for me was, I know we talked a little about this, but just like a mindset shift of how I am trying to grow the company and before setting things up or adding something new or changing the way we do something is making sure that this is a process that can be scaled to 10, 20, 30 locations, and that anybody can do it, anybody can jump in that seat, anybody can run that, and just making sure that we're setting the business up to scale to that point. And maybe we don't get there. That's okay. At least we still have aspirations to get 5, 10, 15 locations at a minimum. Just making sure that everyone can be copied and pasted, set systems, set automations, that everything just runs like clockwork, and there's not as much going on in my head, not as many like limiting beliefs. It's like, oh, we can't automate this thing or this thing, or we can't do this way because of XYZ. And just having somebody in there be like, calling the bluff on that, be like, no, that's not true. Here's what we can do to automate this or to make this easier, make it scalable, to make sure that we can grow a multi-location business that, like I said, can scale to 5, 10, 15, 30 locations. So
And I want to commend you on being so coachable, because I wasn't like the yes man, like you're doing everything great, bud.
yeah,
Like you fell in love with Google Sheets, clearly, and which I love Google Sheets too. A lot of our stuff has ran through it, but like everything, like what you ate on Tuesday of 3 years ago is on Google Sheets.
yeah,
And I was like, bro, you don't have to do it. I
yeah.
I'm freedom to live a life outside of Google. Um, so I want to just applaud you for being so coachable. I'm very lucky that you are not in my market, because the level of go-getterness in a 20-year-old is to your level is not seen by a lot of other 20-year-olds. And I'm certain that we would be going to war down here if you were here, because uh, growing what you've grown in Hartville, I went and got a round of golf and at the most beautiful golf course I've ever been at for $29. And so the cost of living there versus where I'm at is drastically lower. Um, and for you to grow almost, 500,000 a year local business in that market at 20 years old is awesome. Um, and I think that the sky is the limit. Further than the sky is the limit for you. So I appreciate you, man. I'm very happy and very blessed that you've chosen me to kind of be in your pocket and help coach you through some things. Very very thankful for the relationship that we're building, and I'm always going to be here for you, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate it. I'm definitely glad we are not in the same market, because, like I said, just having somebody who older, wiser, and has done what I'm trying to do is just has really been invaluable, to where, like, especially just going through all these questions and all the things, just I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I would give somebody, or like I would switch going out, is like, there's a million people putting out content on YouTube and social media, and they all have great advice, maybe depending on your situation, but like, finding somebody who has done what you're trying to do exactly, who's living the life you want to live, has the business that you want to build, um, and then just asking for advice, paying for guidance, paying for coaching, and just being able to, like, those 3 days probably saved me 3 years of work, like, that I otherwise would have been figuring out and banging my head against the wall. And so I think that's just huge for anybody to have that resource. So I'm super super grateful for you and your mentorship and your coaching, your guidance. So it's been awesome. So I'm super excited next
Start
couple of years.
Start of many years of growing together, I'll say so.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, man. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and shoot me a text or email if you have any other questions. I'll help you out.
Yep, we'll do. Thanks, Sam.
No problem. Bye.
Yeah, see ya.